I was on a beach and there was a little kid. She said, I've just been learning about you in school. And she told me a story that wasn't true. It was one of the kind of, like conspiracy theories. And I said, well, no, let me put you straight. I said, I'm one of the Beatles, I was there. Now that's not true. What really happened was, and she said, no. I learned it in school. Okay. So you kind of have to let it go, it's just good that they even are talking about it or listening.
You just have to let it be.
Huh? You have to let it be. Or amen.
Amen.
Amen. Final thought from you,
Someone told me once, I was probably lightheartedly, that the CIA, that they were encouraging the abstract expressionists and the American pop art.
Once Peter Blake talked with Paul McCartney about the rumors of his death, and Paul said to him, "You know I am not Paul McCartney. You met Paul when you were working on Sgt. Pepper and he didn't have a scar on his mouth. Look, I've got a scar. I'm a stand-in."
Have you ever trained or used Beatle doubles as decoys?
No. We tried to get Brian Epstein to do it, he wouldn't do it.
Is Ringo going to continue acting? There's a possibility that he would be an actor if he dropped out of the Beatles.
The possibility he wouldn't be as well, because the film contracts for the Beatles, and if he dropped out, he wouldn't be in it, would he?
No, it wouldn't be of any interest, Who wants to see nobody?
I sell records, and it doesn't matter if I've been in the Beatles or not. If they don't like the record out there, they won't buy it.
Everybody loves you, 6 foot on the ground.
No, hopefully this isn't going to close out my career. It's going to open the second lifetime.
In '64, when asked if they planned separate careers, the Beatles had said,
no, we wouldn't stand a chance singly.
Like, I've been on more sort of hit-selling records as a composer than anyone else alive.
Paul McCartney has said it was easier being a Beatle than an ex-Beatle, and perhaps with good reason. He hasn't had a top 10 hit since the early 1980s. On top of all that, in the past few years, Paul McCartney has become the favorite target of rock critics who claim he's a prisoner of his past, relying on Beatles tunes to draw the crowds. And some would have you believe that he hasn't written anything relevant since his partnership with John Lennon.
There's no use me playing the bass because I don't know anything on it. I'll just listen.
Did you learn last time?
It was bad. That's what I mean. I went through all that last time, so I'm playing it. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking bass.
Made on a home recording of Paul's. Very rough.
Just trying to see where we are now and see what we've got around us, see any mistakes we've made, straighten them out.
I can imagine looking at Paul McCartney and thinking, well, he wouldn't have any insecurities.
Yeah.
But it's not true.
It's like a kind of replica of me, and at the same time a little bit extra something,
But maybe we could just do a few sections with him and with Paul, and a few with,
They employed the winner of a Paul lookalike contest held in Scotland to replace the dead Beatle.
And they even had a contest, believe it or not. The Beatles had a contest for a lookalike for Paul, and some guy from Australia looked a lot like Paul, and they were bringing him in. And recently I received a TV show from Italy where they were claiming that Paul indeed is dead, and that the guy that took his place was made with plastic surgery.
No, you're wrong. It's not us.
When I was maybe 9, my pops gave me this book about Paul being dead. Since I was born a Beatles fan, I promptly read it, without any anticipation as to what was to come next. I mean, was he dead? There are only 3 strings on the guitar. License plate says 28F. Who's Billy Shears? Why so many subliminal messages?
It's a mystery to me. See ya. Cheers.
I said, man,
I said, I'm not white. I may look white, but I'm black inside, boy.
You look different in person. Yeah, so do you. Yeah.
It's all the makeup, too much makeup.
You might need a little bit of makeup and a couple of prosthetics here and there.
It's just amazing to me because I'm still here and it's me looking at that story. And it's a question of, is that me? Was that us?
Is that Paul? I'd like to have a word with you.
I've got something of his in the garden.
I have something of interest for you.
I thought of that for a moment, that maybe, you know, somewhere along the line the Beatles had concocted this thing or told somebody to start spreading the rumor. I mean, I looked for that. I sincerely wanted to believe that this was some kind of publicity stunt.
These clues can be found almost anywhere. In the El Submarine movie, during the first scene in the submarine, this shot shows all of the Beatles together with an additional fifth figure, that being Paul duplicated onto a screen.
And he was killed at that time. Not knowing what to do and not wishing to smash the British economy, a double was quickly found, and since then has been impersonating Paul McCartney.
In a way, I think of Paul McCartney as him.
I'm not him, I'm some guy in a fictitious band. Well, like I never was going to tell anyone first, it's thrilling.
I'm not actually him, I am a double.
2 years ago when I was dead, supposed to be dead, you know, Paul was dead. I wanted to ask you about that. Are you No, I'm not actually dead, no. Not actually. Just a good replica.
What's that you're doing, Gringo?
Shadowboxing, of course. It's like that, and that, and that. Oh, well, you can't win them all, can you?
Yeah, we're only ever going to be cartoons forever now, because they really put us off those.
Hello? We thought, that's a really good idea. You stay at home and send your car. And true enough, it did go on tour, and people had come, and they'd pay money, and just wander around it like it was an exhibit at Madame Tussauds or something, you know, and he didn't have to be there. So at the time in the 60s when we were thinking of doing Sgt. Pepper, which is when we didn't want to tour, that idea suddenly sounded very nifty, you know. So we said, well, we haven't got gold-plated Cadillacs, we don't do that stuff. But we could send a record out on tour.
It was sold here in the mid-80s and acquired soon after that by Ringo Starr. And Ringo then gave it to his manager, and it has been in his collection ever since. And it has this wonderful inscription on the back by Ringo, but he doesn't sign himself Ringo. He signs himself Billy S. Billy Shears.
It starts out with Sgt. Pepper and introduces Billy Shears, and that's the end. We got as far as Sgt. Pepper and then Billy Shears.
Let's hear the story about Sweet Loretta Martin and Jojo McCartney.
What's the name? Jojo. Jojo Pop, Jojo Williams, Jojo Pants, Jojo Feather.
Show my gratitude. This I'm washed. We have
You know William?
Yes, of course.
Oh, great. Wonderful you come on.
Why you not real? Who cares about you? Wanna show you my passion.
The album's title is Egypt Station, so there might be a little clue there.
And so you've known a man who calls himself Paul McCartney both before and after November 1966.
Yes, I've known both of them.
Well, who the hell's Billy Campbell anyway?
Some Beatle banter at breakfast from John and George Harrison before they began a recording session in May 1971.
It's not out every day I get the opportunity to do a press conference.
Do you see much of the other Beatles these days?
Well, I see a bit of Beatle Eddie.
Beatle Eddie, yeah.
Beatle Eddie, but
I've got no comment.
And Beatle Philip.
What about Beatle Alan? How's he these days?
Well, Beatle Allen's, he's on holiday.
I see.
We've got Beatle Klaus replacing him.
See much of the Beatles these days, the other Beatles.
I
Beatles
saw
are great band.
Beatle Ed.
Beatle Ed, how is he?
Do you ever see much of the Beatles these days?
The Beatles, no, I did see Beatle Ed though, recently.
How did you sleep, you cunt?
Okay, stop.
Set the record straight about today's situation. The press are keen to imply rifts. How do you and Paul get on?
We get on very well.
George?
It's hard really to stand here supposedly representing the Beatles. It's what's left, I'm afraid. But we all loved him so much, and we all loved Paul very much.
Hello. I'd like to send a request to somebody who I used to go to school with too, and he used to play bass in the group, Paul McCartney.
Oh, by the way, I'm alive. We want to share with the world what we have, Peter, and this is what we have.
What we haven't.